Joey. Yeah.
Hey, let's start the show.
It's April 3rd, 2014. This is episode 251 of This Is Only a Test. I'm Will Smith. Seated directly to my left, wearing his headphones Lobot style, Norman Chan.
I saw Lobot's real headgear in person. It was very inspiring.
Was it better or worse than you expected it to look?
Better.
Let's talk about that in a moment. Directly to your left, wearing his headphones the traditional up and down vertical way,
80s.
Jeremy Williams.
Hi.
Welcome back to the show, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me.
It's been, 2-3 weeks now, I guess?
At least 2 weeks.
Yeah. What have you been up to? Have you seen Lobot's headgear?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know who? Do you know who Lobot is?
I know who the GoBots are.
GoBots are JV Transformers.
Disappointing face.
Lobot is Lando Calrissian's major domo on the Cloud City on Bespin.
His loyal manservant.
Yes.
His valet.
Here we go
So
again
to
with
speak.
your crazy out there Star Wars trivia. His name was never mentioned
In
the
movies.
He was credited.
He was credited as
He
Lobot.
had a name in the credits?
Yes, and there was an action figure, which is where most of my Star Wars knowledge comes from.
I am trumped again. I am so embarrassed on this show. I feel like a neophyte.
Did you not have Star Wars toys when you were a kid?
Of course, I had some. I had like the X-wing that had the little pellets that would shoot out of the wings, and I had a few action figures, but I didn't have the Darth Vader carrying case or the big things.
Darth Vader carrying case was a special pre-order bonus, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I had the C-3PO because
It
I
was-
did not pre-order.
It was because Kenner sold the figures before they actually had the
No,
figure.
no, that's different. That's a different thing.
So that wasn't the early
No.
constellation by the carrying case before we can actually deliver all the figurines.
That was what I like to think of as the world's crappiest Christmas present. Hey, here are the 13 figurines that we didn't get done in time to sell at Christmas time, but we're going to give you an empty box. It was just that, as I understand, was just a cardboard box. You could get a Darth Vader or C-3PO head that was maybe 2 feet tall, maybe 1.5 feet, that held like 35 or 40 action figures. Never anywhere near enough space for the action figures and the stuff you wanted to put in there.
My bad.
And if you carried it with the guns on the figure's arms, then they would just rattle around and make horrible clacking noises everywhere you walked and everywhere you went.
I wasn't an action figure guy, to be honest with you. I had Transformers because they did things.
They were cool.
Yeah, I had a lot of those.
For me, action figures were like adventure playtime. Like I would make stories in my head where Han Solo and I didn't have Optimus Prime, but like Wreck-Gar would go on adventures together. So like Han Solo would get in the Millennium Falcon, he'd land on the planet of the Junkians
That's
from
great.
Transformers the movie.
Ah,
Maybe that's not the case. I might have been old then, but anyway.
you're like the kid from Toy Story.
Andy
Yeah.
or Sid?
Well, I meant
Sid,
Andy.
are you garbage man?
No, I'm not a garbage man.
That's
You're not
great.
Sid.
Yes.
You are going to be a good dad, no problem.
So Lobot,
Lobot.
you know who we're referring to.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
he wore his-
He gets awakened when Lando gives the word that says, "Screw it."
Yes.
We're on the good side.
Absolutely. And he doesn't speak.
Yeah.
He's bald, and he has headgear. that
Is he
wrapped-
bald or is he pattern baldness?
He's bald, pure bald.
Okay.
He's like Picard before Picard.
Huh.
And he has the headgear he has, which I assume he's a robot,
I think he's a cyborg.
cyborg.
Yeah.
He's cybernet. Yep. Controlled by his headgear. It's massive, and it goes around the back of his head, as opposed to on top of his head. So I wear my headphones Lobot style. He is the source of my inspiration for how I wear my headphones.
I have no idea.
So
And I paid pilgrimage to the Star Wars props exhibit
yeah.
in San Jose a few weeks ago, and they had the original prop of Lobot's headgear. You can see the electronics and all the fake wiring and everything on the inside.
I bet, like every other character, like any character that was big enough in Star Wars to rate a action figure, probably has a fully fleshed out backstory by now, thanks to the extended universe, right?
And the Tested podcast.
And the Tested podcast. We like to think of ourselves as the definitive authority on Star Wars extended universe.
You
expanded
are to me. You
universe.
are to me.
Sorry. So yeah, and when I go to the Wikipedia, do you not know that there's a Wikipedia?
No.
It's my favorite Wikipedia related pun. The Wikipedia has an extended biography that's like 1,000 words about Lobot. Yeah. He was the son of a slaver, traveled across the galaxy raiding backwater and poor worlds for slaves. At the age of 15, his father was killed when their ship was boarded by pirates, where Lobot, ironically, served as the pirate slave for 2 years before he escaped to Cloud City in the gas giant of Bespin. So there you go. I got nothing. I got no segue for that. I got no transition from Lobot style headphones. Hey, was there anything else at the start? We talked about the Star Wars exhibit a little bit on I can't remember if it's today's or an upcoming episode of Still Untitled. Yeah,
Next week's Still Untitled.
The haunted episode, the cursed episode.
Yes.
Build starts tomorrow. It's kind of like Star Wars.
Wait, let's drag it out. Star Wars at the props exhibit.
Yeah.
They had the 6-foot shooting models for most of the ships. The one that I found most impressive was the Y-wing.
Really?
The detail on the Y-wing.
So when you say 6 feet, was it 6 feet across the short way or 6 feet the long way?
The long way.
Okay.
They had the Tantive 4.
And
the blockade runner.
I assume that like the 6-foot models are the ones that they use when they do those panning shots across the back, and you see the astromech unit in the back and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Not the ones that show the whole ship at a time.
Well, what Adam told us was those are the models actually used for the explosions.
Oh.
Which I'm not sure if that's actually the case, and I'm sure that when that episode of Still Untitled goes up, people will either correct us or validate
Comments.
in the comments.
You would see the residue, right? If there were explosions on those ships.
Yeah, or they would be destroyed if they were used for explosions.
Maybe they weren't all used for explosions. Maybe they made more than,
What happened to the LucasArts campus in the Presidio here? Do you guys know?
It's still there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but is it still run by Lucas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume it's still, yeah.
There's a name. It's the something institute. That's not Lucas.
It's like Letterman or
Letter,
something,
yeah,
yeah.
something like that. Exactly.
But I thought after Disney took over, maybe they were shutting that down.
Oh no, that's still all of Lucas and ILM.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good to
they
know.
were glad to get that space.
That's the only place I've seen the kind of things you guys are talking about. Where you walk the halls there, and there's amazing relics from the movies all over the place.
Well, so, I mean, we've talked about this a ton on the podcast, so I won't go into it. But I've been to, every few years you see a Star Trek prop exhibit, whether it's for TOS, TNG, and later series, movies, whatever.
Did you say Star Trek?
I did. And then there's also Star Wars prop exhibits.
Yeah.
They both travel from science museum to science museum around the, I guess, world. I've seen them in mostly different parts of the country. And they are pretty consistently awesome. Like, if you like that stuff at all, it's worth taking the trip to your local science museum and paying the extra $10 or $20 or whatever it is they want for access to those tour things. Because it's really neat to see what that stuff looks like in person. And it's something like I saw the first Star Wars exhibit when I was probably 23 or 24 on the first time they took that stuff out on tour. I think around the time that they re-released the original movies in theaters, right? And as part of the 10-year build-up to the prequels. And it was great. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing to see what a 15-foot Star Destroyer model looks like. Like, it is, you look at that thing, and unlike... When you look at a cathedral, you can see that took thousands and thousands and thousands of man hours over 50 or 60 years to build. When you look at a 16 or 20-foot model of a Star Destroyer, you see, oh yeah, 20 dudes were gluing shit onto this for months and months and months and months. And that's all they did. And that was all for 5 minutes of footage in a movie. But that 5 minutes is what is part of the thing that establishes. If you look at the Star Destroyer, the shadow of the Star Destroyer going across the Vader Star Destroyer, going across all the other Star Destroyers, like, that establishes what an unbelievable badass Darth Vader is. He's a bad guy leading up to that point, but you're like, oh, wow, these Imperial guys, they're really fucking serious.
People booed.
Yeah,
Booed when Vader stepped on the Tantive 4.
yeah, of course.
I assume there weren't those kind of models for the prequels.
So the first movie, Adam said they did models
They
on.
did.
The same caliber, the same size.
Oh, yeah.
and the same.
I'm sure, yeah.
Interesting, because I thought they were trying to save a lot of money by going CG.
Like
So-
the Trade Federation donut ships, is my understanding. A lot of those
Yeah.
were models.
What I didn't get the chance to say when we recorded the last podcast with Adam is what bullshit the exhibit designers did in merging the original trilogy with the new trilogy in the displays. For example, they would have a display with costumes, and they would have your sand person,
Tusken Raider
Tusken Raider,
is the proper nomenclature, dude.
with the costume and the big staff and everything. Looks great. The costume still looks great. Right next to it, the female Tusken Raider
which only appears in the prequel.
only appears. It's like, oh, that looks like a pretty good costume too. And then you look at the sign, Episode 3. Did that for the droids. Did that for a lot of the props. Just mush them all together, and hope you wouldn't notice.
No respect.
No.
So, Build is this week in San Francisco. This is Microsoft's developer conference.
Oh,
Sorry, it was an unnatural segue. Would you? I mean, I know this is the last stop in this exhibit, but you would go to like. Is this something you would go back to again? Like when they bring this around the next time?
I would get back to it
Because
again.
2 years from now there'll be
Yeah, it was
another
like $20
lap.
bucks and totally worth it.
Yeah, a couple hours of fun, right?
Yes.
Better than going to a movie.
Depends what movie.
Better than going to see Episode 7.
No.
Are you going to go see? Are you
Yeah,
going to go see
absolutely.
Episode 7 on opening night? You going to line up?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's the one kind of movie I would do that for.
Your son is the appropriate age to take him to a Star Wars. Like he will stay up late, I assume.
When does it come out? Next year? Year after?
2015.
December of next year.
Okay.
Or winter of next year.
He'll
Yeah.
be almost 9. Of course, we'll be up no matter what hour.
Yeah, I assume that will be it'll be a formative experience either way,
Absolutely.
and he'll be excited. Has he seen the prequels and stuff?
Yes, he's seen. He hasn't seen the episode 3 because it's PG-13, and he just turned 7.
But this will likely be also PG-13.
Yeah, he'll be all right by then. I mean, we'll probably watch episode 3 this year. He has friends that have seen it. I just,
It's the legs chopping off and all that stuff is a little brutal, and
yeah,
the kid murder.
and there's some real decapitations.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
yeah, no, I can't wait. Absolutely, and I can't wait to watch it through his eyes. See a new movie through a child's eyes.
Has he's seen the original series though?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you do the recommended 4, 5, 6?
No. No, I
No.
did the order I went in.
Which was?
Well, 4, 5, 6.
That's the recommended.
The recommended is 4, 5, 1,
No,
2,
no,
3,
no,
6.
That's bullshit. Don't even bother.
That's-
Those people
Why is
are
that bullshit?
That's
crazy
what I
town.
feel.
Yeah.
Wait, why is 4, 5?
I mean, I guess you
1, 2,
preserve
3.
all
If
the
you're gonna-
spoilers that way.
If you're
yada,
gonna watch
yada.
1, 2, 3, then you're saying the recommended is not 1, 2, 3.
If
it's
you
4, 5, 6?
here's the thing: is if you watch the Darth Maul sword fight and then go watch old David Prowse and Mark Hamill sword fighting at the end of Return of the Jedi, it's going to be a little underwhelming.
So you want to watch 6 before 1, 2, 3?
I think you got to watch 6 before
And not
1,
to
2,
mention
3.
the Yoda.
I think 6 is so spectacular that
I love 6. I have deep affinity for 6.
I can't. You know what kills me is the music in the end. That they changed the
Yub Nub?
They got rid of
Yub
Yub Nub, and they put in
Yub
some
Nub.
new thing with fireworks and all the other cities, and
That
horrible.
is some big time bullshit. You're right.
it ruins that movie for me. And I go singing Yub Yub myself.
Yub Nub.
Sorry.
It's Yub Nub.
Yeah,
Get it right.
it's Yub Nub. Sorry.
Yub Nub.
Jesus, Jeremy. Jesus.
But you're lucky. You're lucky we have you on over here. Should we talk about Build?
Sure.
Do we care at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've tried twice now, and it's been shot down both times. Build is Microsoft's developer conference.
Mm-hmm.
It is for Windows and Windows-related things, which I assume means not Xbox One or Xbox 360, but pretty much everything else Windowsy,
Including the iPhone now.
including Office for iOS. Including Office stuff as well, including the cloud services stuff, including Windows Phone, including Windows, touch tablet, Windows 8 stuff. That's pretty much what I mean. There's keynote starts tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the morning. I think it starts at 9, but you're supposed to get there at 8:30. And I'm going to be interested to see what they talk about this year. I mean, they don't have any massive successes to.
Well, I think we should
kind
talk
of-
about Office on iOS.
That is a thing we could talk about. Yeah.
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal. I didn't put it on the list, but it's we can talk about it for sure.
Now that must have been in the works long before
Yes.
Mr. New CEO
It's
became.
been rumored
the
for a
CEO.
very long time.
So the way it works, I haven't used it.
What's the new CEO's name?
Satya
Nadella.
Nadella. Thank you.
Nadella. Thank you.
It is a full suite of Office, and from all the reports I've read of people who've had time to use it, you can do, for what most people do on Office, you can do everything that most people do.
It is essentially an Office client for Office 365. I think FedEx is here. For Office, so if you don't have an Office 365 subscription, it is essentially a viewer and a displayer for Office docs that are saved on Office 365 SkyDrive implementation.
Is Office 365 Microsoft's version of the Google Docs?
That's their
Suite?
subscription service.
Is
So
in the cloud?
It is in the cloud, as they say.
Is it like a collaborative?
It is not exactly collaborative. I don't know whether the web version of Office 365 is, but the iOS version makes you save changes up to the cloud and pull them back down. So it's not like Google Docs where the three of us can be open in the same document and I see your typing and Norm sees your typing and you see my typing and we can all be doing it at the same time.
And then also they want you to pay. They want you to subscribe to Office 365.
It is a paid service.
Yes. If you want legit editing and cloud saving, you have to pay.
So it's not terribly expensive. It's like $5 a month for the low level version, which includes Outlook Mail and some other stuff. There are prices for home, family, and small business. The home version, the home Office 365 Home Premium, which seems to be like it's 5 clients plus up to 5 tablets, 5 Mac or PC clients plus up to 5 tablets, is $99 a year, which is more than $5 a month, but less than $12 a month, $10 a month. It's $7.50 a month if my math is right.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think that's an reasonable price. I think that's still cheaper than what the old home and student editions were for Office. They were $125 or $130 pretty consistently. So yeah.
The bigger deal is that Microsoft in Nadella's presentation of Office made it really clear that this was good for Microsoft, that they didn't need to hold Office as tightly as they had in the past, that both Gates and Ballmer had in the past, that was, even though that's the source of a lot of their income, they're okay sharing that in other platforms because they recognize that their platforms are not going to be the dominant platforms in the mobile space where it matters.
Well, and I mean, because their platform wasn't available on the platforms people were using, because their software wasn't available on the platforms people were using, then they lost.
It's becoming increasingly irrelevant.
Yeah, they were the most value. The thing I've learned over the last few years using both Windows machines, Macs, Android devices, occasionally iOS devices, is that these services, the Apple stuff that's only on iOS and OS 10, is much less valuable to me than something that works across platforms. So Rdio, I'm willing to pay $7 a month for because it works on everything that I ever want to use. Whereas iTunes Radio is kind of useless because it's only on my iPhone and my Mac. Same thing goes for reminders and note sharing and all that stuff. Google Docs is great because I can use it on every single device that I have. Evernote is great because I can use it on every single device I have. Office being only on my PC or Mac was much less useful. And getting access to those files on my tablet or phone, which are devices I carry with me everywhere, was more important that I have a less fully featured piece of software than one that was always connected. And the collaboration thing is amazing. Like that's the other thing. For specifically, and this is probably limited to the stuff that Norm and I do, but being able to load up a document that somebody else is in and work on it at the same time for a working journalist is a magical tool. So anyway, that's iOS. It's the iOS app. Everybody can download it. It's free. I think that there's an in-app purchase to subscribe, basically $99 a year,
Which means Apple gets $30 of that.
right? I think Microsoft probably doesn't care.
Well,
I'm sure they care,
Ballmer
but
would
it's
have
the price
cared.
of entry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they have a large number of users. Same thing for Android. Is there an Android version coming too?
I'm not sure.
I would assume probably that there is, although Google and Microsoft have been squabbling lately. So, Norm, you're taking pictures with stuff over there.
If you're watching this video right now,
yeah.
Literally half an hour before we started the podcast, I received in the mail the HTC One, which we discussed very briefly on last week's podcast. Will's going to step away right now to take an important phone call. So, Jeremy, do you know anything about the HTC One?
I know that it came out once before already, and this is the new version.
So there was a previous HTC One. It was a big deal for HTC, Taiwanese phone maker. Their big high-end Android phone, which I loved. In our review of the HTC One, it was the phone that got me off iOS, off the iPhone. I had the iPhone 5 before, and then I went to the HTC One, and then with the widgets and that. And to be fair, I had the HTC One Play, the Google Play Edition. And since then, I switched over to the Nexus 5. Both of those had 1080p screens, and I've been loving the Nexus 5. And just a week and a half ago, HTC announced their new HTC One. They're still calling it HTC One, in parentheses M8. And I don't have the old one, unfortunately, with me here.
What are the bullet point improvements?
Mainly processor improvements, Android improvements, and camera improvements. There's a lot of HTC software on here built in. The model I have is the T-Mobile HTC version with all the HTC software on it. Google is selling a Play version of this for GSM networks. That's shipping, I believe, April 15th. In a couple weeks, but I wanted to get it early to get some legit testing. And I just took a couple pictures while sitting here, and I can just, judging by the pictures I took, this is the best camera I've used on an Android device.
Wow.
So far. Just based on the half dozen pictures I just took right now.
The one I saw there was quite nice. I was going to ask you if it was filtered. Did you apply any?
That was not filtered.
Quite nice.
The colors, I don't know if they're doing any special filtering right now. But I was actually pretty unimpressed with the HTC One. Do you remember the HTC One had the low megapixel but high pixel size camera?
It's kind of like what they did with the iPhone 4 or whenever it was that they did that.
I think they started advertising that in the iPhone with the 5S.
Yeah.
But it was a 4 megapixel camera, but had
lower light capability.
Better low light capability because the actual pixel size on the sensors were bigger.
Yeah.
Right. And they measure that in the micrometers. I think they're doing the same thing with that here. But I have been really disappointed with the photo quality on the Nexus 5. And this is an LG made phone. And it could be a combination of the screen here with the image, but it looks fantastic. And I'll post an image of this on the site for people who are just listening over the audio. Yeah,
that's a big deal. I mean, camera alone, I think, is a selling point for a lot of people.
Tons of people, yes. And just going into the camera options, this is HTC's software. There's the front cam. There are actually 6 different camera modes. There's the regular camera mode, which is the back camera. There's selfie mode. They call it selfie mode, which is the front camera. I know they just call it the front camera, but I guess they're speaking the language of their customers.
Embrace.
Dual camera, which takes a photo of the front and the back at once. If you want to take 2 pictures.
With a picture-in-picture?
Picture-in-picture.
Huh.
Yep. Video mode, the Zoe camera, Zoetrope cam, which captures high frame rate and creates basically an animated GIF. And in the panoramic mode. I will be doing some thorough in-depth testing of all this stuff over next month. This is going to be my phone, but I need to switch it over. I have an AT&T SIM card, and this is a T-Mobile phone, so I need to unlock it to get it to work. It's already getting a little warm, this phone, but it's a little heavy. Is my very, very, very initial impression.
Very.
Because I just got it half an hour ago. Will is still out for the moment. Let's talk about Oculus.
Okay. Without Will?
Yeah.
All right.
So last week we had Gary on the podcast, and we talked at length about Facebook's acquisition of Oculus. And unfortunately, you were not available. You were at NVIDIA's GPU Tech Conference, which I do want to hear about in just a moment. But you had told us that you had lots of thoughts about the Oculus. And this is also your sticker,
Thanks.
isn't it?
I saw you guys pick this up on the podcast, Gary.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go into it too much, obviously, because it's kind of last week's news at this point. But I did feel that you guys were drinking a bit of Kool-Aid last week with how sweet the feelings were about the Facebook acquisition. If I could maybe summarize what I feel like your positions were.
Sure.
I feel like you guys were saying that Facebook acquiring Oculus is going to give Oculus the resources that it needs in order to make good on the promise that they have made, which is create a metaverse, a cyberspace, and flesh out VR technologies such that they can fulfill all of their visions. And then the Facebook aspect of it is really purely a means to ensure that that will happen without some competitor coming along with more resources.
I think that that's a good summary of our net positive attitude at the end.
Yes.
And just to say net positive is fair assessment of, but I think we had the three of us had different explanations and reasoning for why we thought it was net positive. The way you phrase that, though, I think is inaccurate in that I don't think any of us believes that Oculus wouldn't have succeeded without the Facebook acquisition or without any other type of acquisition or other type of investment. What we did definitely agree and make the case for was that the $75 million that they had received initially so far from VC would not have been enough to fulfill their vision of VR and scale at the pace that they could now and necessarily protect them from the pitfalls of running as an independent company with all the legal potential legal problems and user uncertainty.
I had the sense that you guys thought that they couldn't scale fast enough to keep up with any competition, such as Sony or anyone else who's going to come down the line. And my feeling was the money would be there, that they were out first. They had the best technology today. They have the most consumers already. They have the biggest, army of believers behind them and supporters, and that if they needed to get a second, third round of funding from VCs, they could have done that for hundreds of millions. And once they got the consumer edition out the door, that would have been a huge influx of cash too.
But in terms of creating that virtual space, even if you had, for example, even if they got $300 million in investment in VC money, or they went public or something, the infrastructure, they just didn't have the physical infrastructure to build out that type of that vision.
Yeah, not yet. But I don't think necessarily like if Facebook had done this internally that it would have been terribly different. I mean, Facebook could have bought a bunch of dev kits and made that space, like made the virtual space that one explores. In the same way that Blizzard made the World of Warcraft servers. I mean, that was unprecedented.
Right.
No one had ever done that before, and they pulled it off.
So the question is, what did Facebook buy?
So Facebook bought, they could have made that space on their own. What they bought, why they needed the hardware, I can only imagine, is because there's going to be this added layer through which we all have to sort of go through in order to get to these online spaces. And the only reason I can imagine that they would want the hardware is, as I said in your comment thread.
You mean the rant which you posted?
My rant under Will's clear-minded explanation. The only reason I can imagine they would want the hardware is to be to VR what AOL was to the web, which meant, and people.
You mean an enabler?
A gateway.
A gateway.
A portal.
Exactly. If people don't remember AOL, people didn't go through that.
We're not talking about Engadget.
They would never. Right. No. We're talking about early days of BBSs, where normally with mom and pop BBSs, you connect your modem to the internet, and then you're online, and you fire up your browser, and you can browse the web or FTP or whatever you want. With AOL, what they did was they introduced a gateway where when you sign on, you get your email through this new portal that only exists through the AOL software.
But in fairness...
And they had all the forums and the chat rooms, and it was like this little enclave, this picket fence.
It was JV Internet.
But, and to your point, we've made the case on this podcast for so many of millions of, however many hundreds of millions of Facebook users.
Billions, I think is the word you're looking
however
for.
many, for a certain percentage of that, large percentage, Facebook is the internet. That portal already exists.
Oh my goodness.
Facebook is the veil that people interact with the internet and communicate through the internet with. That has been their MO.
And not to apologize for AOL, which God knows, like the problem with AOL wasn't was that it didn't follow the social constructs that had been put in place by the early users of the internet. Those users came in and they didn't know what was going on, and there were a lot of 14-year-olds. And I mean, that happened multiple times, right? Like Usenet arguably was ruined in the fall of 1993 or 94 when a bunch of college kids came and all of a sudden got internet access for the first time and jumped into Usenet groups and just flooded Usenet with garbage, right?
I think that your concern is absolutely valid.
AOL smoothed over made connecting to the internet easier.
Yeah.
I mean, they had software that meant you didn't have to call somebody to get a dial-up number. You had one username and password. You could use it. I mean, I had an AOL account for a little while because I was traveling, and I could use that as an ISP anywhere in the country, and I didn't have to pay long distance or sign up for multiple ISP accounts.
One of my first jobs was to do tech support for America Online.
Oh, God.
And
you poor bastard.
I would get some interesting phone calls. You know, I never got the what is this cup holder that comes out of my computer when I push this button. I never got that one, but they're somewhere very close.
Well, and if I think that analogy is really interesting. It's something that we didn't bring up last week, that about Facebook being the portal and using the AOL analogy. Now, if we want to look at the way Facebook runs its website now, that is definitely a scary proposition if that is going to be how it's going to run its gateway into the virtual space.
I can't imagine what that virtual gateway looks like. I mean, I have to imagine it's in virtual reality, so it's in 3D. I have to somehow traverse it.
Well, I don't think
Neil
think the space
wrote all about this in 1993.
I think we're taking the idea of the space too literally. I don't think it's going to be. I mean, who knows? But I think that it's all going to be segmented, just like communication apps are today, just like messaging and photo sharing and video sharing.
You mean you go into the video sharing Galleria?
Right. Like none of that, even though Facebook owns all of those segments and has properties in all of those segments, they're not all done through, they can be, but not all done through one Facebook hub. So if you take like Instagram, or okay, let's say like video, right? If Oculus, if they're going to build out a space and a community for people to share video and watch video and do cool things with video using the Oculus technology, I don't think people are going to have to go through their Facebook wall, whatever the virtual implementation of that is, to experience that. It would just be a specific app, you know, like an Instagram or YouTube, but for virtual reality.
That's what I heard you guys expressing last week, and I hope so. But I fear that a $2 billion purchase can only lead to monetization, the likes of which we can't imagine.
$2 billion is nothing.
It's nothing for Facebook.
It's nothing for Facebook.
Look, I know, and
it's two Instagrams. They've done nothing with Instagram.
And as many people have said, years from now, it's going to look like a bargain. They're going to have gotten this for a steal.
I mean, if virtual reality becomes a thing that takes off with the mainstream audience, $2 billion is chump change.
But nonetheless, I realize that it's not that they can afford it. I realize that. But nonetheless, they could have done everything you're describing on their own. They didn't need the hardware.
It would have taken much longer, potentially.
Here's the thing, though. I can't believe we're talking about this again. People are going to flip out. Although they seemed to like last week. The virtual reality is one of those things
you
that
didn't have any dissenting voices last week.
Gary's usually does that, but he totally dropped the ball.
There was too much Kool-Aid drinking last week.
Here is the difference, right? Virtual reality, unlike the internet, is something that if people put on the goggles and have a bad experience, they're never coming back, right? You put on the goggles, you start feeling sick, you're probably done. If you're not, I mean, Norm, God bless him, sat through 2 hours of Euro truck driving with the goggles on. Normal people aren't going to do that. They're not going to put, if they start feeling bad after 3 or 4 minutes. So the VR experience, whether it's Oculus or Sony or whoever, they have one shot at getting it right when they reach out to normal people, when normal people put these things on. And if the Oculus guys weren't convinced, just look at the jumps they make every 6 months with new prototype hardware. If they weren't convinced that they were going to make it, I'm not convinced that they were going to be able to give that kind of experience on the first consumer version of this. So they weren't going to get, if they didn't have that perfect experience, they're not going to get the Wii moment of grandma's in the living room playing the bowling game, because it's a metaphor that everybody understands. In order for this to work, they need presence. They need motion tracking on your feet. They need to put a pair of gloves on with IR dots on them, so they can motion track all 10 digits on your hands, so that you can minority report your shit around in the virtual world or hold swords or whatever the fuck it is you want to do. And Facebook money makes that possible.
Well,
They
eventually,
didn't have the money.
You don't know they wouldn't have had that money, though. We didn't get to see what would happen
Here's-
without the Facebook acquisition. It very well could have worked out for them.
How
They
many-
were on course to be a successful company on their own.
They're $100 million, which is about what they had
Yeah.
total for the entire run so far, is
With-
not money to
with-
bring out an Apple quality product.
$100 million after like a year and a half since the Kickstarter.
There's not
launched?
that many VCs left.
Oh, they go public.
There's not. Yeah, they'd have to go public, and then that's
Why
a
not?
whole other issue.
That's fine. They can go public.
They're not going to get. They're going to go public like B did, not like Red Hat did. They don't have any products. They don't sell anything yet that has any kind of audience. They've sold 75,000 units on $100 million.
We didn't get to
raised.
see it. They
Just
had
nothing.
They had a runway to get to the consumer edition. They could have done that. Then the consumer edition launches. They are talking about all this internal development they're going to foster.
Uh-huh.
They could have become the Valve of VR. It could have happened.
Valve didn't want to be the Valve of VR.
And,
Yeah.
and
And they're
everybody.
a billion-dollar company.
Fine, leave it to Oculus then. Absolutely, and I think that they're very good friends. It probably could have worked out. But I'm just saying we didn't get to see that, and a lot of the people who backed the Kickstarter thought maybe that's what we would see.
When you backed the Kickstarter, all they said was, "We're going to send you a $300 headset
I'm not saying
or a T-shirt."
I'm not
like
saying
that. That's it.
I'm not entitled to it. I don't want shares in the company. I just wanted to see them be independent for a little bit longer.
I just don't.
You're talking about
look at-
you're talking about like quantum realities collapsing and
No, I'm
like,
no now.
like that future that was promised or that you had hopes for
Yes.
is closed off.
It's
and
gone.
That is that feeling. I think you impose in a lot of community, rightly so or wrongly so, put a lot of their projected a lot of that hope onto Oculus.
Yes, they were the chosen ones.
But I mean, all I'm saying is I get that. But in the cold, hard light of day, outside of the internet message boards and wherever we go to talk about this
No,
stuff,
we
the
can't-
amount of money that they had wasn't enough.
We can have independent companies still. You don't have
Not
to be an
to do.
acquisition.
You can't build a new product category with $100 million.
It wouldn't
and there
have been that.
wasn't.
It
There
would've-
wasn't more money to get.
Yes, there was.
I mean, there was.
There was going to be consumer money from the consumer edition, and then another round of VCs certainly would have been there if they needed it.
With what terms?
Well, whatever they would.
They're not. As soon as they took $92 million, they're no longer an independent company. They have to give Andreessen Horowitz money back at some point.
But
those guys aren't going to ride it for 10 years. Zuckerberg will.
You guys said yourselves last week that some of the VCs involved were a little shocked by this too. They wanted to hold out for more.
Well, of course they
Yes.
wanted. Yes.
I think at the end of it, we thought that there was a lot of fear on the Oculus part about whether, with the competition also, whether that they could grow. Because when you look at Oculus, like they're going to be outside the publishing platform. We just look at the hardware. That hardware is they built it on consumer hardware, off the shelf parts,
like phone parts, basically.
phone parts, readily accessible. Someone like a Sony, someone like a Sony could turn something around in a year and be 80% there. It was going to be very competitive.
It does seem like that they were scratching the surface of some new cutting edge stuff with this low latency stuff, though.
Yes.
I don't think that's out there.
And I
cell
think the
phones.
proprietary stuff that they've developed, a lot of that's going to be on the software side. A lot of it's going to be the algorithmic side, and that's a lot of the IP that Facebook bought. But Facebook bought also the brand awareness and the momentum the Oculus had, and to keep that going, to bootstrap that.
Right.
To be clear, last week I was distraught. This week I'm okay. It's
Do you need a hug, Jeremy?
basically it's the positive sides of this are all absolutely there, and I believe that everything you said is true. They're now going to be able to compete. They're going to be able to make new hardware advances a lot faster, and they're going to be able to stumble more times than they would have been able to otherwise. But yes, I wish they had been independent. All I have to do now is just acknowledge that in the future, when I'm going to boot up my VR headset, it's going to be Facebook.
But it might not be Oculus.
Bum,
It
bum.
might also not be
Facebook.
Oculus.
Exactly.
Like, do you use Instagram?
No.
No. Okay. I mean, like Gary and
Jeremy
I use,
hates Facebook.
Gary and I use Instagram, and the Instagram experience is
Yeah.
completely. You don't have to be on Facebook to have that share that community.
VR is going to be bigger than Instagram.
Yes.
They
At
made a
least
movie
twice.
about Zuckerberg refusing to monetize the Facebook. Right? I mean, now let's just get it right. When they decided to make money on the Facebook, they didn't fuck around. It is a disaster. But they have to be, if that's their first product, they have to be looking at that as, hey, maybe we should build something that's a little more, that finds the appropriate level of advertising for everyone, right?
If we could segue,
Yeah.
the perfect unicorn chaser to this news was what followed later in the week.
What you mean when they hired the guy who wrote the software renderer for Quake and large parts of the Windows NT kernel, as well as developed the AR prototypes for Valve?
It was almost as if they held that news because they knew there would be some fallout. And they said Michael Abrash can save this.
They actually said publicly in an interview someplace, they didn't expect the level of fallout that they got.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
It was quite sensational.
Well, I mean,
I haven't been on the Kickstarter forum.
the Kickstarter forum is always a disaster when something goes against. Here's the, I apologize for going back, but when something like this happens, and I said this last week, you can go one of two ways. You can assume, as we do on the internet, that every single person that's publicly speaking is lying for some unknown reason to make themselves seem better. Palmer comes out and says, yes, we think this is going to be good for the company and good for the good for the virtual reality community as a whole. Zuckerberg comes out and says, yeah, I think that the metaverse is really cool and I would like to make that happen.
He talked about it convincingly as the next medium beyond computer screens.
Yeah.
And phones, beyond mobile.
Carmack comes out and says, hey, we think that this is one of 2 or 3 companies that actually has the infrastructure to make this happen. I mean, maybe all those guys are lying. Maybe they all have some sort of massive conspiracy to get your $300 for the virtual reality headset and then take the money and run and sell out like motherfuckers right to Facebook. But it's also possible that they actually believe what they're saying and they think that this is a good idea. They think it's the future and want to invest because they want to make sure that it happens in the way that they envision and not, in some reduced way or, be plagued by flaws or whatever the negative outcomes are. So you can either trust that the people that you believed in before are continuing to not lie to you, or assume that $2 billion corrupts absolutely and that they're all lying.
Well, I believe that they're going to monetize it, and there's going to be some sort of a gateway that I have to go through that's just Facebook branded before I can get to what I want. And I'm willing to accept that in order to get the beauty that is virtual reality.
You want the virtual porn.
I want whatever VR brings with it. And as you said last week, Carmack is the canary in the coal mine. And
I think Norm said that, actually, or Gary said that.
Well, you guys,
Someone on the internet said
that
it.
was right on. That was spot on. He's the one guy of the 3 you mentioned that I would believe.
And now there are 2.
And now there's 2.
Yeah, so they hired Michael Abrash, and Michael Abrash is, when you if you had a convention of the smartest guys in the room, where it's only the guy who's always the smart guy in the room, and they all go there. Abrash and Carmack and Tim Sweeney and a small number of other dudes are real high on the list of smart guys in the room. Everybody who uses a Windows machine daily is using code that was written by Michael Abrash 15 years ago, 20 years ago. He wrote a software renderer for Quake, the software renderer for Quake in assembler code. He's a super smart dude, and he's been pursuing AR/VR at Valve for the last 5 or 6 years.
No, it hasn't been that long. Not at Valve. I think he's only been there for a couple of years.
I thought he started in 2009 or 2010.
I'm saying it's been only a couple of years.
Anyway,
But I remember
it seems like longer.
And I'm curious to know why he left, because it seems like he wrote some really interesting blog articles about VR since going to Valve. He wrote about the interesting non-hierarchical structure they have it at Valve, where he had to find something to do because no one would tell him what to do, and he just sort of stumbled into research surrounding augmented reality.
Well, so it seems like one of the things, like this is from the post that he wrote announcing his joining of Oculus. It seems like it's something, and we've heard this story before. When he was writing the Valve blog, in conversations that Carmack had around the time that he first showed off his head-mounted prototype. Like this is a recurring theme. He and Abrash read Snow Crash and Neuromancer, and we're like, well, this is a thing we could do. We can make video game worlds. We can make them talk to each other.
Yeah.
Why not build this thing? And then they got going and realized, well, it turns out that the goggles, there's a bunch of other problems that we didn't anticipate. And next thing you knew, they were making Doom 3, and Abrash had gone back to Microsoft or someplace else. But the way he told the story is Carmack initially lured him to come down to id to work on Quake by saying, "Hey, we want to make this metaverse thing." So, I mean, I'm super excited about that. I think it's an incredibly. I mean, it seems like from what he said publicly in interviews and also in the blog post is that he wanted to do AR stuff because he thought that was more attainable at Valve, and then they moved away from that because it seemed like the VR stuff was close. When they saw Palmer's prototype and Carmack's prototype, it seemed like they realized they were closer to VR than they thought. And moved on.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of research he's done at Valve. I'd be very curious to know. But I do know that when he and Carmack are together, great things happen. And that is to have somebody on Carmack's level that can enhance his mental processes and vice versa. It's going to be an amazing thing. I mean, they have assembled an unbeatable team. No one's going to be able to keep up with these guys.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter if those guys are independently wealthy, and it doesn't matter if like whatever they do at Facebook/Oculus is a success or not. They will advance the thinking about virtual reality and the virtual spaces.
Yeah.
And even if they choose to leave 2 or 3 years later, that information is going to be out there and other people will take the baton.
And that's an important point. There's not a ton of IP on VR stuff because it's a lot of off-the-shelf hardware applied in interesting ways.
In terms of hardware.
So far, I'm sure that will change. I'm sure that motion compensation, as we start building algorithms to do to do finger tracking and all that kind of stuff, then
eye tracking,
whatever it happens to be, there will be applications inside the field. But if things start to go sideways and Zuckerberg wants to put the like button on the Oculus, so you just have a hardware like button when you're looking at anything, you can like it, like, then those guys can pull the ripcord and go do something else. Like they can take their big brains, and in a relatively short period of time be up and running and making new hardware. So, I'm optimistic. I remain optimistic, despite your negative attitude, Jeremy Williams.
No. The pros outweigh the cons. This is fine.
I'm just messing with you.
Facebook, full steam ahead. Let's do it, Mark Zuckerberg.
Anything else? How are we feeling here? We good on Facebook Oculus talk?
I think we're good on the catch-up.
Okay.
With Jeremy.
The story thus far. Yesterday, jury selection in the latest Samsung Apple lawsuit started.
Yesterday as in?
Yesterday. Oh, sorry. We're recording. Earlier this week on Monday.
Okay.
Jury selection in the latest Samsung Apple. Seems like the judge is not taking any guff from any attorneys. And instead of doing like a massive 2-week jury selection process, they ran everybody through in a day and came out with a jury. They excused some people, a person who was from Cupertino and had affinity for Apple, a person who worked for a company that had previously sued Samsung for patent infringement.
What is this an appeal from the previous?
I think
$1 billion settlement.
This is the damages / some sort of follow up. It's difficult to keep it all straight. All I know is that this one's worth $2 billion.
Oh my gosh!
Or one Oculus, as the case may be. And it seems like it's going to move relatively quickly. This may even be like the damages section of that earlier trial that we talked about last year. So that's a thing that's happening. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, is mandating that all new cars have to have rear view cameras by 2018.
That's awesome. That's great.
Absolutely.
I think that's a good thing.
It turns you into a parking ninja.
I've never had a car with a rear view camera.
I have not failed a parallel parking job since 2007.
Every time I park, I would think people are watching me saying, "That was amazing." Because I come so close and I go so fast until the last second.
So you treat it like a video game.
It's great.
So the only time I've ever had rear parking cameras is in rental cars, which when we used to get the passenger vans to go to Vegas for CES, it was amazing. There's like in the rearview mirror, there's this little tiny screen, and it has like green, red, and yellow marks to let you know how close you are to ramming the thing behind you. But I could parallel park a 25-foot land shark like I was a champ. How many people, if you have the show notes open, it's not going to be a surprise, but I was shocked by the number of people that are injured, not so much killed, by getting backed over in America every year.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
So there's 210 deaths, which actually, I don't mean to be callous, but that doesn't seem like very many people considering how many cars are on the road, how many people are driving. And, I assume that a lot of them are absolutely tragic, like kids getting backed over and horrible stuff like that. But then the number of injuries is astounding. There were 15,000 injuries annually because people have backed over other people. And I assume that's like backing out of parking spaces and parking lots and all sorts of stuff.
I never hurt anybody before I had a backup camera. So I just,
Did you just straw man this?
when I was parallel parking, I might hit a bumper now and then.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that a backup camera is going to solve all these problems. It seems like there might be some driver error involved.
Oh, you don't say. Anyway, it's something that the NTSB has been trying to do for a long time, and now it's actually going to happen. It has to be any cars made after May of 2018, and I think already some manufacturers like Honda and Toyota are putting them in pretty much everything now. So, I just think it's interesting because it's going to mean that most cars are going to have screens on the dash, which is new, especially on the lower end, like domestic cars and stuff like that. So.
I guess they could do the tiny ones up in the rear.
The rear view mirror. I mean, that's not. I actually kind of like that, like as a cognitive thing, just because it means that you're looking in the rear view mirror, which is a place that you're accustomed to looking. You know what I mean? Like that. Like there's no cognitive change. You don't have to look down instead of up or anything like that. It's just, oh right, the rear view mirror is where I look to know when I'm backing up. But it is a tiny little screen.
Yeah. It seems like GPS eventually will be everywhere, and every car will have those screens too.
Or a standard to plug your phone in.
And,
and I think that a lot of people are moving. Car makers actually are moving toward integration with partnering with some operating system, mobile operating system, whether it's iOS or otherwise.
That needs to be a universal though, because I don't want to have to buy my car based on which phone they support, or vice versa.
That is exactly what it's moving toward, because that software is upgradable as opposed to the car stuff, which you have to pay a lot of money for it, and is still on DVDs in some cases.
Ugh.
So you're saying it's moving towards a universal system?
No, moving toward an proprietary app based and iOS based.
Yeah, I hope that we can, as a couple of industries, work out some standards for that stuff, because I don't, like I said, if I want to get the car I want and the phone I want, and I want them to work with each other seamlessly.
You know, Apple is going to have a leap forward with the iOS in the car, and it'll be interesting to see if they do try to turn that into an open standard.
Well, there's a Google standard as well that is actually open that Apple could have used, and they chose to use it.
Right, yeah, but I'm saying, you know, Apple has, they established the FireWire spec
20 years ago.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that they have some history of establishing standards.
Remember when iMessage was going to be open?
No.
They said that. They said we're going to release protocol specs. FaceTime, sorry, not iMessage.
It could happen.
It could happen.
They were going to open FaceTime?
That's what they said.
Oh, wow.
It was either iMessage or FaceTime. I'm probably misremembering, but let's see.
I would buy an iOS in the car.
Well, that's coming. I mean,
but what if it's only like a Hyundai? What if it's a car you don't want?
No, they partner with like a dozen.
Would you get an Audi instead of a Mercedes?
It's all high-end cars to start.
I mean, I would make my car choice based on that.
Would you get a Saab instead of a Jaguar?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Although I wouldn't want either one of those cars, but I'm just saying I would make my choice based on that.
Would you get a Maserati instead of a Toyota?
I'm not alone, you know. There are obviously more people out there like me, because it's going to be a thing.
Oh, I think it's going to be a thing both ways. I just wish that they would.
Me too.
Yeah, support both.
Me too.
Maybe you have to buy the car and get the right option. You get the iOS option, you get the Android option.
Oh, that's horrible.
Seems like a real disaster.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I need to bring my car in to get it upgraded so it works with my new phone. Doesn't have a Thunderbolt port. Roku announced. So this is interesting because 2 years ago at CES in 2012, right? 2012. It wasn't the one where my daughter was born. It was the one before that. We actually saw a Roku HDMI stick, kind of a predecessor to the Chromecast, but it's basically a dongle that hangs out of your HDMI port and worked as a Roku box. And it was just a kind of prototype demo, kind of, hey, here's this cool thing we can do. Excuse me. But they're actually selling it now.
Yep. It's been out for a little while now. I think Ars Technica has a review from a week and a half ago, and does most things that the Roku 3 can do.
What can't it do that the Roku 3 can do?
The audio pass through. Right now the Roku 3 has
the EAC or through to the remote.
The remote. The Roku 3 remote has a headphone jack that you can listen to whatever you're playing on the Roku 3 just with the headphones. That's one of the reasons why the Roku 3 remote uses Wi-Fi connection.
Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi Direct?
Wi-Fi Direct.
Okay.
And I don't think the stick can do that.
Is the stick HDMI powered, or do you have to have an external power adapter on it, like the Chromecast?
I'm
do you
unsure,
know?
but I believe it's external powered.
Yeah. Jeremy rolled his eyes.
You're just Apple TV person.
Well, it's just so silly to have a little dongle sticking into your TV with an external power supply.
Did you hear that there was someone, I think it might have been the Roku CEO, who said something like Apple's definitely losing money on Apple TV?
You think so?
Yeah, that's what the CEO said.
That was a Roku representative. It wasn't the CEO.
There's no storage in it. It's just the processor.
Processor.
Wi-Fi.
Losing money on the business.
What I think
The service? I don't know, man.
I think the implication is that there's no way they can make money on that given the hardware that's in the box. And Roku folks would actually know, unless there's some outside effect that we're not aware of, like the fact that Apple is binning chips from phones and putting them into the Apple TV or something like that. Failed chips from phones.
I don't doubt that there's not a huge margin on that, but I doubt Apple sells anything with no margins on it. And they make a lot of money on the service. I mean, we don't rent movies from anywhere but Apple TV these days. It's just so easy. The kids...
But it's all the same. I mean, I rent stuff from Amazon and well, not Google, but Amazon and probably Amazon. When I think about it, Apple
Yeah.
TV. I mean, it's all like once you have the account set up, you mash the button and the rental happens. It's easy.
Yeah, but they get a fee, right? I mean,
Everybody gets a fee.
They get
yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that there's the income right there. Maybe that...
I mean, how much? Yeah. I mean, in the old days, they always said that they ran iTunes the iTunes store as a break-even business.
Then 30
I don't know if that's still the case.
Yeah, I don't either.
They haven't said that in a long time, if you'll note,
I did.
since the music wars ended. Gmail turned 10 earlier this week on Tuesday, April Fool's Day. Do you remember what the other Google announcement was on April Fool's Day in 2004?
Something
Good God.
with the moon.
It was the Moonbase.
Do you remember that? Did you guys talk about that today already?
We have not talked about that,
Wow.
but it was on Twitter a
That's
lot.
impressive.
The funny thing about that was when they launched Gmail and had the Moonbase announcement on Liar's Day, people thought both of them were a joke because Google came out with Gmail and said, "Hey, there's gonna be a gig of space."
A gig? That's crazy.
And at that point, I think Hotmail, you got 2 megabytes or 10 megabytes or something like that. It was nothing.
That's absurd.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Fucking liars. It's more bullshit April Fool's nonsense. And here we are.
Well, you couldn't get in. It was a very closed community for a while.
I got in.
Well, you're Will Smith. People like me couldn't get in.
I have 15 gigs of space on Gmail now.
It always goes up.
I think it stops and starts sometimes.
Well, they really is trying to push people towards their paid storage services,
Yeah.
especially with the new rates. I bet you won't see those free rates going up that much.
I'm using 91% of my Gmail box.
That's ridiculous.
It's almost all attachments.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, why are you shaking your arm at the
He
ceiling,
wants
Norm?
to. He wants to fly.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Not in the rain. Anyway.
Oh. Some Israeli students hacked Google's traffic analysis service Waze. Have you used Waze, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's great.
Waze is amazing.
I can't believe it hasn't become even bigger.
Well, it's integrated
Google bought
now.
it. They're rolling it into Google Maps Nav.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
So when you see in Google Maps, sometimes the traffic incidents will be reported by Waze.
Love it.
Yeah. But some Israeli students figured out how to basically game the Waze system and create fake traffic jams.
Also, love it.
So it's kind of it's literally like a live free or die hard scenario. Or what was this? What was the fourth one? A good day to die hard or live free or die hard?
Or Die Hard.
Yeah. So the one with Shia LaBeouf, where the hackers.
Justin Long.
Oh right, Justin Long. Wow, I apologize. It's a terrible mistake to
Bruce Willis was in it too.
Bruce Willis is pretty good.
Yeah, he was.
And Kevin Smith was in that one, I
Yeah.
think, which
He
is
was.
why I assumed Shia LaBeouf was
He
in
was
it.
like the hacker Wizard of Oz.
Right. So the idea that somebody was able to manipulate real life traffic patterns just by running some applications is a thing that is real now and not just made up.
There was also a Microsoft employee who did something funny with Google Maps or Google's listings, where create like fake CIA listen stations or something.
Number stations.
Not number stations, but fake CIA outposts on Google Maps in their directory, so people could It was some. I briefly read the headline, but
Did you listen to the 99% Invisible about
About
Busta
number
Rhymes
stations.
Island?
I don't know about Busta Rhymes.
You should listen to Busta Rhymes Island. It's great. Highly recommended. Highly. Somehow my Zoom got up to 150% on my laptop. It's wigging me out. Did you guys see Pokemon
Yeah.
in Google Maps? Did
Yeah.
you find any? Did you get any?
No, I didn't do it.
Did you catch them all?
I just saw that there was such a thing. It's interesting that they pulled off that license agreement. I can't imagine they did that without an agreement. Can you?
That's an interesting thought.
Because, I mean, Nintendo's notoriously kind of keeps their cards close
Well,
to
but
their chest.
Pokemon is owned by the Pokemon Company,
Oh,
which
is that
a
right?
subsidiary of Nintendo.
No. Well,
So maybe they negotiate it. Maybe it's a little more amenable. I mean, you see Pokemon pop up in licensing stuff, right? Aren't they in like lunchboxes
yeah.
and Happy Meals and all that business?
I didn't participate.
Norm, did you ever play Pokemon?
No.
Jeremy, did you ever play Pokemon?
No.
Yeah, we're all too old. I don't really
Absolutely
understand
not.
it. All I know is you got to catch them all,
It's cockfighting.
pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
but he's talking about birds, dude.
No, I know, but still.
It's first you enslave them, then you fight them. So cockfighting, typically you breed them for fighting. This is more like you go out and you catch some wild cocks,
Right.
and then you fight them.
Gotta catch all the wild cocks.
All the wild cocks. Microsoft is finally adding DVR controls to the Xbox One via Smart Glass app. So right now, did you get an Xbox? You got a PS4, right, Jeremy? I'm the only Xbox
Yes.
One. Is there an Xbox One in your house yet, Norm?
No.
No
I
one
have
has brought
no
one home?
next gen console.
Wow.
In my house.
No Wii U even?
No Wii U.
Wow.
No, none of that.
Is this an edict from on high in
no,
Norm Manor, or is this
I'm,
just
I'm not buying all the consoles for the house anymore, so no one's buying them.
you did it last time?
I bought all of them.
Did you have the house last time?
No, but I bought them and they were imported.
Okay.
So wait, pretend I don't know anything about the Xbox One.
So the Xbox One is a next generation gaming console from Microsoft.
did they?
It's actually the third Xbox.
Was it supposed to ship with DVR ability?
So it ships with the ability to plug your cable box, typically a DVR in this modern age, into your console. So it has an HDMI in port. And then you can do such things as say, Xbox, watch TV, or Xbox, turn to Fox, and then it changes to FX, and then you say Xbox, change channel to Fox, and then it changes to Fox News,
Yeah.
and then you say Xbox, change channel to Fox, and then it finally goes to Fox. But you also have like an on-screen menu of all the stuff that's on at any given
see.
time. So if you want to watch sports, you can say, show me all the sports stuff. And that doesn't do anything, but then you can go to a filter using the controller and filter out just the sports stuff. Just like you can with any kind of high-end DVR, like a TiVo or the Comcast
Yeah.
1 modem or whatever that thing, X1, whatever that's called. Now, the problem came, and it's the same problem that the Google TV had when they initially launched that thing, in that the device, the Xbox, has no way of knowing the state of the DVR. Like, it's just an HDMI connection. It's not really a data connection. So it'll pass sound and audio through, and it can send some limited controls back up the cable. But it doesn't know like what shows you've recorded on your DVR. It doesn't know that your DVR has the ability to play Comcast, to go to Comcast on demand and all that kind of stuff. Still doesn't have that. But what they have added is up, down, left, right, enter, back, those types of controls, so that at least you can navigate the menus using the Xbox remote or the Xbox Media remote, or say a Harmony or something that's attached to the Xbox. I still am not sure that it's worth the hassle. I mean, right now we have our Xbox One hooked up to the TiVo just so that Gina can use voice commands when she's trying to watch TV and has to get up and go grab the baby during the day or something. It uses quite a bit of power. So the Xbox draws not quite full load under games, but like 80 watts when it's running on when it's on TV viewing mode for essentially nothing except for voice commands and,
Wow.
and some slight volume up, volume down, that kind of stuff. But now you can control your DVR, and they're also rolling out a Smart Glass app that gives you a more functional media remote. That is what enables all of this stuff.
Smart glass. I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah,
So
it's a big living room initiative.
So it's interesting using that stuff in the real world. Is like a lot of games just don't support it. Like Titanfall has no smart glass presence whatsoever. The Smart Glass app is also the thing that you use on your phone to see if anybody's online playing games. Like I can get to my friends list from that. So I sometimes, if I want to play Titanfall, I'll go see if Gary or somebody's on, but without having to fire up the Xbox. But since the Xbox and the TV are married, the Xbox is almost always on if the TV's on. So it's real weird. Like, I don't know. The one positive example is that the Assassin's Creed app that also worked on the PC and PS4 versions, but that wasn't even a Smart Glass app. It was a separate standalone thing. So, you know.
How long does it take to actually launch these things?
What do you mean, the Smart Glass apps?
Yeah, are they segmented enough that it feels like it's like a 10-second delay from switching from one to another, or is it instantaneous?
When you launch the apps on the device or the apps on the tablet?
Device.
It depends. So the nice thing is when you fire up the Xbox, if you say Xbox Watch TV, that loads immediately, and then the other stuff kind of loads in the background. If you like, launching a game typically still takes as long as it usually takes to launch a game. You have to, log in, fire up the game. It connects to the servers in Titanfall or Plants vs. Zombies case. For the games that are single player stuff that support the instant resume, I think is what they call it, where it basically runs in, the games run in a virtual machine. So what that means is that the console can theoretically save the virtual machine state, just like you would with VMware or a VirtualBox or anything like that. And then in that case, like Dead Rising or Assassin's Creed just loads up right where you left it, as if you had paused the game, left the console running, came back and unpaused it. Occasionally that doesn't work, but for the most part that works, and that works even between like system updates, and maybe not system updates, but definitely during reboots and through reboots and stuff like that, assuming something doesn't go haywire along the way. I know people have had really mixed results with that. It's worked quite well for me, so my experience may not be universal. But and then there's other stuff, like when you're playing a game and you need to load up an OS level menu as an overlay. So for example, if you're in a multiplayer game, you pull up the friends menu, then that sometimes takes a really long time, like on the order of several seconds. So you see the game kind of fades out in the background. You know that something's coming, but it takes a while to load in and launch that particular virtual machine, which is weird because the console's a hypervisor basically. It's a really neat idea executed fairly poorly, is what I would say. Although it does seem to be improving, and they're rolling out monthly updates.
Do you expect any Xbox announcements at Build?
I would be a little bit surprised.
Save those for E3?
Yeah, the one thing that we didn't have on the list is that Microsoft announced a new, somebody new is running Xbox Division. So it's not actually going to be Stephen Elop. It's Phil Spencer. Yeah. I don't know Phil Spencer.
I don't know Phil Spencer either.
No, but I mean, I don't know who Phil Spencer is. I think he was in charge of Microsoft Studios.
Yeah, he was.
So at least he's been making games for several years, or working with people who make games for several years, as opposed to Elop, who was previously the person in charge of Xbox, and who made Nokia phones for several years. So it's still, we hear constant rumors about Microsoft wanting to unload Xbox as a division because it doesn't make a ton of money. But it seems like this is putting somebody who's actually into games in charge of games. Seems like probably a good thing for Xbox.
True.
And like I said, I'm optimistic that the product will continue improving, but it's still not particularly great.
If you play games, are you on the Xbox over the PS4?
Depends.
Depends on your friends, or depends on what?
It depends on well, I mean, Titanfall's a Xbox game, which is most of what I've been playing on consoles lately. Typically, I play on the PC.
Yeah.
So, like Stick of Truth, PC, Spelunky, PC.
Good for you.
I don't know what else I've been playing. That's pretty much it.
Keeping it maximum.
Stick of Truth's real good.
I haven't played that.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Really?
It is a magical game.
No. I'm going to write this down.
You know what? I think we're done with news. Let's play some music and we'll talk about what we've been testing. Hey, Norm, have you been playing Stick of Truth?
I have been playing Stick of Truth.
What's Stick of Truth?
Stick of Truth is the South Park game that we all wanted when we first saw South Park, and then they started making games, and you remember that early wave of South Park games in the late '90s that were
Yes, I do.
universally terrible.
Some of the worst.
Really, that kart racer is
There was
in a genre
Oh my
that's
god, they
terrible.
made a South Park game.
there were very few PC Gamer covers we were most embarrassed by.
Which one was
But
the?
I think we made a kart racing cover.
Oh, that game
no,
was
it
so
wasn't kart
bad.
racing. It was the first RPG game.
Oh,
action
you're
game.
right. You're
Oh my
right.
god, they made a South
That's
Park
right.
game.
That's
Cartman
right.
on the cover.
Thank you, Norm.
Yeah. So, as a response to those games, it seems like from what I've been able to ascertain, Trey Parker and Matt Stone decided that they didn't want other people to be in charge of South Park games anymore, and created South Park Digital Studios, and then started working on an RPG. I think because they liked either Skyrim or maybe even Oblivion, like going that far back. Because like the game that they built has a lot of that kind of quest structure where you go. It's a lot of kind of go meet somebody. They'll tell you, give you some stuff to do. You go do that stuff, come back, and they give you a reward.
Well, they developed it with
Obsidian.
Obsidian, who has made. I mean, they make games like that.
Yes.
Their RPGs are very like
Fallout
initial
New
quest
Vegas.
driven. You got to find these 3 people first, and then go back home. And then
It opens up a hub area.
So
Yes.
it's very. If you've played any RPG, this will be a very
Western
familiar,
style RPGs.
familiar structure.
Although the combat system's a little bit
JRPG.
JRPG. It's a really funny game. Like my wife was listening to it and she was like, "This is actually really funny. It doesn't sound like a video game at all."
It's a funny game, but it feels like they
Well-
didn't put all. It feels like it's very self-referential. So if you have to be a fan of South Park or have seen a lot of South Park
And
to
I
get
think
the
have,
jokes.
I think you have to be a fan of video games too. Like there's a lot of when they roll out a specific enemy type, they're like, "Oh, I can't believe we have to fight this again."
The one thing I thought about the game was the density of jokes is much less than an episode,
That's true.
which has to be the case because it's a 15-hour game and you're basically playing a very drawn-out, long 4-hour episode, but in 15 hours because of the combat and because of the walking around. So if you're looking for the density of humor that you get from a South Park episode or even the South Park movie, you're not going to get that. I think they could have done the writing's great, but I think that the stakes of the game and the level of ambition is not up there with the South Park movie.
It seems like they've been working on it for a really long time. And I think you're right. I think I would almost say it's like 4 episodes. I mean, I'm through the 3rd or 4th day now, and they picked good cameos. They hit all the stuff so far that I wanted to kind of see out of South Park.
Cameos it's a cameo game and a lot of referential stuff. As opposed to if you think of the South Park movie, it was very standalone in terms of the characters and the humor.
Well,
and it met its commentary on movies, R-rated movies, where this tries to do that for video games.
There's a lot of
varying degrees of success.
There's a lot of video game commentary. It's not a game that I think you have to play. Like you don't have to be good at video games to play. It's not like your first person shooter or you're not going to jump. It's not like playing multiplayer Call of Duty on Xbox Live or PC. I don't know if it's paced well enough that somebody who's not into that genre of kind of Western RPGs is going to be okay with, because there's a lot of like there are some fantastic jokes where they clearly are like, this is a video game, fuck it, we can make them wait, right? And they use the pregnant pause or Jimmy stuttering or whatever to really wonderful effect in a way that would never work on the TV show. And I laughed out loud multiple times every time I played so far.
That's cool.
Yeah, it starts a little slow. But yeah, so that's South Park. What else have you been testing, Norm? What do you have right there? We talked about it a little bit already.
We talked about it very briefly when you stepped out, but this is the HTC One that I'm currently very immersed in. That I'm going to transfer all my stuff from my Nexus 5 onto for the next month.
Isn't that just you restore the backup from?
Yes, which I've just done.
Okay.
But because this also runs HTC Sense UI, which I am not super familiar with,
okay,
I need to incorporate all that stuff into the HTC UI stuff. So I have this.
Has Sense changed?
Yes.
Since, I mean, it doesn't have the old weather duber with the orange cloud or whatever, orange sun and white cloud.
The big thing is that they have their own version of Google Now. They call it Blink.
Oh, that sounds not
and
good.
so it's like all your news and feed stuff swipes to the left. I will be experimenting with the launchers.
Is this the Play Edition or is this
not the Play Edition?
Oh,
this is from T-Mobile.
Which
is fine. It's
the Play Edition wouldn't have the Sense stuff, would it?
Play Edition would not have
Right,
the Sense
that's
stuff.
true.
The only thing the Play Edition has is the right software to run the camera. the special camera on this.
What's the special camera? Did you already talk about it?
We didn't, but
Okay.
it's similar to what they did to the last camera, which is lower resolution but higher pixel size, larger pixels.
Okay.
And from the photos I've taken so far, I think it's already the best Android camera on an Android phone I've used.
Wow, that looks
So
really
far.
good.
Yeah, and that could also be the screen.
Yeah, the
as
screen
well.
looks really nice too. It's a little blown out around the lights, but that
Yeah,
could just
that's also so the lights.
oversaturation.
I have a box that I see over there, which is delivered with more camera stuff.
You can't. We can talk about that.
We can talk about that. We could technically talk about what I've been testing over the weekend, not specifically though, but
Let's save it. The video will be up next week, right?
we'll save it for next week's podcast. I know it's something that Jeremy wants to talk
It's
about.
so tantalizing.
It's
It's
if you'll be back next week, we can talk about it next week.
I would come back just
To talk about it?
I'm going to go ahead and tell you.
Wow.
Norman Chan earlier today said this was the coolest thing I've seen since I saw the first Oculus Rift, and I think he's
did I say
probably
that?
right.
Yeah.
I said that there are only 3 things that I've seen technology-wise in recent memory that I think are going to change the world, consumer electronics-wise, consumer technology.
What were the first
One
two?
was the iPhone, 2007.
Yeah.
Next was the Oculus.
You know
2000.
iPad?
No, iPad didn't change the world. iPad was just an extension of the iPhone in terms of
Okay.
the way we interacted with technology. Oculus in 2012 and 2014. This piece of
I think
technology.
you mean Facebook Oculus. Farmville VR. Here we go.
This is it.
I'm excited.
I'm
about it.
so excited.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been testing. I got a baking steel in. We talked about the concept of baking steels. 2 years ago with Scott Heimendinger, who is one of the creators of the Sancerre sous vide maker. He works with Modernist Cuisine. That's it was Seattle Food Geek blog before that. But one of the things he was always stoked about was using steel instead of stone. If you make pizza at home, you undoubtedly have gotten either one of those pizza stones from Williams Sonoma for $30, which is a thin piece of one solid sheet of ceramic that's the size of a large pizza, square usually. Or you just went to Home Depot and got a bunch of fireplace bricks and chucked them on the bottom shelf of your oven, which is a perfectly reasonable way to do it and works great. The problem with those stones is they don't conduct heat particularly well. So they take a really long time to heat up. Norm, you're just shaking your head.
I'm shaking my head because Google, as a part of their, this is one of
Like,
their
you're
April Fool's
freaking
jokes.
me out, man.
Fuck you, Google. In Google Chrome, there's a translate the entire page to emoji as dedicated thing in Google Chrome mobile. Fuck you, Google.
That's not the worst one. The worst one was our friends at iFixit, who said that they were bought by Apple, and then later that day, people were so fucking pissed off and didn't get the joke because it wasn't funny that they had to send out a release that's like, "Nope, we didn't get bought. We're just kidding. We would never do that. We would rather die. Sorry, it's April 1st. It's fucking Liar's Day."
Okay, sorry.
That happened 2 days ago.
Sorry,
all of
yes,
that stuff happened
sorry.
2 days ago. So anyway, like typically the way to make pizza at home is you put a bunch of stones in your oven.
Yeah.
And the reason you do that is that you get them really hot and then they hold the heat so that the crust of the pizza, you put the pizza right down on those bricks, the crust of the pizza gets the kind of consistency and cooked the way you want it to be.
I've been doing it entirely wrong. I've been
How?
taking the pizza out of the box and sliding it onto the tray, and then I cook it as long as the box says, and then I take it out and I eat it.
God damn it, Jeremy.
I had no idea.
Have you never made real homemade pizza? This is a fantastic dad activity.
Did I not just explain? Yes.
no, that's not-
I take it out of the box.
It's frozen.
Yeah.
It's not delivery. It's DiGiorno.
I make it at
Think about
home.
you mean frozen, just the crust, right? Frozen crust that you buy freshly baked.
Jeremy Williams.
I have done the Pillsbury.
Jeremy
crust.
Williams, you're going to have to come down to Pacifica, bring your children, and we will. They're not gluten allergy kids, are they?
Well,
They're not gluten kids.
one of
They're not-
the kids is kind of off dairy, but
That's fine. We can
might-
make a no cheese pizza.
We might make an exception.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to hear what an oven steel is.
Okay, so a baking steel.
Sorry. Yeah, baking
It's okay. You do that to make the crust right. When you're cooking dough if you just put it in a pan, it doesn't get hot enough and it doesn't get the right level of crisp or any of that stuff. What a baking steel does is because steel conducts heat much more efficiently than the stones do, is it both warms up a lot faster and it transfers heat to the crust much faster. So you end up with a much a much kind of more a crust that's closer to what you would get in a real pizza oven than you do with the bricks. And also, you don't have to leave the oven to get the bricks to temperature to 500 degrees. We usually leave the oven running for a fairly ludicrous period of time. It's like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes. The steel warms up in about 45 minutes from what I've been able to tell so far. And the results were really, the early results were really promising. So I made, I didn't want to make dough, because it's a 24-hour, you make it and then it has to sit in the fridge for a day, basically to proof and get the right level of crunchiness.
Wow.
So I went and Gina bought some Trader Joe's dough, which is actually quite good. Like if you're looking for a cheap, easy shortcut on pizza dough, Trader Joe's dough gets the job done. And it just comes in a little bag.
Yeah.
We made a bunch of pizzas this weekend just to kind of test it out. And I was really, really pleasantly surprised. It makes a big difference.
The pizza sits on the steel?
Yeah, so you put the pizza on you assemble the pizza on a peel. This is where the fun family activity comes in because everybody gets to put cheese and whatever vegetables, meat, whatever your toppings of choice are. Tofu if you're not so much into the whole cheese thing. And then you slide the pizza. This is where the dad work happens because this is a high intensity, serious job. You put the peel at like a 30-degree angle and kind of shuffle the pizza, wet dough off of the peel and onto the steel.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because I guess you know what? That's what they use at pizza joints.
Yeah.
Like I spent a couple summers delivering pies for Papa John's and Domino's.
The affordable pizza leader.
And now that I think about it, they would put their dough onto these little steel circles.
Yes.
And then slide them into the conveyor belt.
Well, so that is not exact. So yes, that is the way Papa John's and Domino's do it. When you go to a real pizzeria with like the big, long, wide door up pizza oven, the little slot that the pizza goes in and out of, they're usually either putting it in on a metal disc, like a metal pan, but a lot of times they just put it straight out onto the floor of the oven.
Gotcha.
And that way you get a crisper crust. If you go to real pizzerias, like New York thin crust places, it's always straight out onto the.
Cool.
Yeah, so that thing's pretty neat. We'll do a video for that when we've had time to test more. Joey's our resident pizza making expert. So
wait, after you?
We're gonna.
Really?
Oh, he's Italian.
Wow. After this,
racist.
you're giving props to him.
Joey makes by all reports, Joey makes good pizza.
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah. So it's a racial bonus +3 to pizza making is my understanding.
Cultural bonus.
Cultural bonus. Sorry.
Jesus Christ.
I think that's it. I made about 10 pizzas this weekend, though. We were giving them away to people down the street. It was a pizza city.
How about that?
Yeah. Well, dough's cheap. The thing about making pizza, it's time consuming. I'm telling you, it's a perfect dad activity. You should be totally in on this. You're just at the right age because they're not likely to get third-degree burns on the oven at this age.
Oh, they would love me for this.
Yeah. It's a good way to get some plump, festive-looking kids. I think that, Jeremy, anything you've been testing you want to talk about? You good?
I don't know how many of your audience would be interested, but I have been testing something I got from South Korea that I think is kind of interesting.
Ooh, is it a monitor?
It's not. Is
it fermented cabbage?
Delicious kimchi.
It's a programmer for essentially Arduino chips. So Arduino runs a CPU called the Atmega 328. It's an AVR chip, and these AVR chips are supposed to be programmed with this $500 piece of hardware. It's a big motherboard that you tell it what the firmware should be and what these fuse settings should be and what the lock bits should be.
So when I write a program to a Arduino board right now, what am I doing? Am I not writing?
Well, you're doing two things.
Okay.
And your chip probably came to you with the bootloader already installed, but if you ever mess up your chip, you got to reprogram that bootloader.
Okay.
So you load up the Arduino IDE and you go to Tools and you say Burn Bootloader. That process takes about 2 minutes.
Okay, that's a long time.
It is a long time because, especially for my project, I have 700 of these things I need to do. They're coming blank, so I have to go through that process. So what I found was you could do this very quickly with a $500 piece of hardware that that the company that makes these chips sort of designed, or you can get on eBay and order these tiny little dongled things from South Korea that cost about $30, and they do the same thing.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So I had them shipped over here. Took about a month to get here, and then I, forced the firmware onto there, and now I can burn my chips in an eighth the time that I would have to otherwise.
Oh, that's good.
It's great.
So you're finding manufacturing efficiencies.
Yes.
Have
And then-
you got to test it out and it works and everything? You haven't
Well,
destroyed anything yet?
I've killed one chip, actually 2 chips, because there's something wrong with the way that it sets these fuses that I didn't even know about. Like, beyond the bootloader and the firmware, there are these fuses inside of these chips that control certain settings, like how big is the bootloader, what's the clock speed, things like this. And those are separate. You can write to those separately, but Arduino makes that completely transparent. You never touch those with
Okay.
Arduino. But when you deal with this kind of lower level, you have access to them. And I guess these things are not setting the fuses right.
Hold on. So does that mean Norm's and mine are both dead now?
No,
Oh,
these
okay.
are all prototypes.
Oh, whew.
all prototypes.
Whew.
And so this is good that I'm going through this now, because we don't want this to happen in a couple months when I'm supposed to be shipping.
So this is Game Frame related news, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay. Since we talked to you last, I think you opened up sales to people who didn't make it in time for the Kickstarter.
Yeah. There's so I had to order 1,000 power supplies, because that ended up being cheaper than ordering 600.
That makes perfect sense.
Right. So
It's a write-off.
So I have to. So right now, I with the Kickstarter, I hit about 600 of the assembled kits.
Mm-hmm.
I opened up another 200 on my site, ledsec.com, for pre-order. But
Okay.
you don't get charged until they ship.
That's good.
You're using Amazon rules.
I guess, yeah. Is that the fact? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm using just like good people rules.
yes.
You being a decent human being.
Right. Decent
Okay.
people rules.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Okay, I guess we have a couple good emails today, so I'm going to play some music, and then we'll take a couple email questions.
Emails?
Well, but we do the other one.
Email.
'Cause it's, we don't do emails. We do
Emails?
No.
Questions?
Boom.
If you have an email for This Is Only a question, rather, for This Is Only a Test, the email address is podcast@tested.com. Please keep your questions short, under 45 seconds. Or if they're written, just make sure I can read them in a relatively short period of time. Our first question comes from Matt Nothing, who says, Dear Tested, I'm going to California this summer, and I will be spending 2 days in San Francisco.
Righteous.
Is there anything that you must do that is not common knowledge? Keep up the awesome site. I added that last part. Norman Chan, you are the master of things that are awesome to do that no one else knows about. So, with 2 days in San Francisco,
A lot.
it's a long time.
That's a good question.
What would you do?
If I'd never been here before,
If he did not say that, but we can assume that.
does he plan on coming back?
No.
I'm going to reread the question. Dear Tested, I am going to California this summer. I will be spending 2 days in San Francisco. Is there anything that you must do that is not common knowledge? Norm sucks. Period. I added that last part this time, too. What would you do with 2 days?
I definitely go to the Walt Disney Family Museum.
He's got to get a burrito.
Definitely go to El Farolito, get a burrito.
Okay.
I would get a quesadilla suiza.
Okay, but yeah, mission style burrito he should have. You have your own preferences. That's fine.
Sure. I would say hit up museums.
The Walt Disney Museum is great.
Walt Disney Family Museum in the Presidio.
Yep.
The California Academy of Sciences.
California is a wonderful building and neat exhibits. San
Say
Francisco.
choose between that or the Exploratorium.
Would you ride a
You can't
cable
do
car?
both. I would not ride a cable car. I would not go to Alcatraz. I would not get a sourdough bowl.
Wait, hold
at
on.
Pier 39.
Hold on. Have you ever been to Alcatraz?
Never been to Alcatraz.
What?
I've been to Alcatraz.
What?
Never been to Alcatraz.
I wouldn't say it's on the 2-day must-do list, though.
Exactly.
It's like 3 hours, and that audio tour is amazing. If you like prison,
It's just that you're on a tour. You're with all these other
okay,
people. You're being
it is
ushered
not a
through.
secret hidden
Don't
thing that
ride
no
the
one knows
ducks.
about. No, the ducks are a trap. Don't rent those little death carts.
Don't ride
The tricycles.
the go kart.
The Segway tour in Pacifica is pretty good.
that requires going to Pacifica.
It does require going to Pacifica.
That's true. Do they still do that?
Still does it. I
That's-
see them all the time.
They're the best. I've done the Golden Gate Park tour
Yeah.
because they lost that license, that company.
Yeah.
And the new guys suck. Those guys are great. I'd go
Segway
on,
of San Francisco.
I'd go on. Is that their
That's the name of the
Segway
company.
San
I would
Francisco
do
and
any,
Pacifica.
any of their tours.
Wait, so you're saying they don't
They
no
don't do the-
longer
no.
do the Golden Gate tour?
no, they were the first,
Oh.
but they lost the deal.
Oh, so
Right.
don't do it now.
No.
Oh, that sucks.
But the Pacifica Segway tour is pretty good. Like
Yeah.
they do the whole, like you get the whole This is where all the limestone that made all the big buildings in San Francisco after the earthquake came from. This is where the railroad used to go. This is with the nicest Taco Bell in North America.
That's true.
You know, all the high points of Pacifica
it's
life.
a coastal Segway ride, so it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, my father went on that Segway ride. We took him on that tour one time. He's the only person that had ever crashed a Segway on that tour. He got a little bit. He jumped it. He got a little bit of air.
That's funny.
And Segways don't like not having wheels on the ground. It goes really badly. Anything else, Norm? Any other secret Norman Chan
I think
secrets?
those are plenty.
I would add.
Okay.
Go to the Sutro Baths, because that's always one of my favorite places to take people who've never been here.
Where are the
View
Sutro
the
Paths?
ocean.
Up at Sutro Tower?
It's by the Cliff House.
Yeah, it's just
right
north
next to
of
the
the Cliff
Cliff
House, so just north of Ocean Beach. It's old. Look into it, Google it. Beautiful old public bathhouse, now just ruins. But you can walk down there and sort of walk around the ruins, and lots of dangerous places you can go. You can walk through a cave that takes you over to this hillside that's just unbelievably beautiful, where the waves crash up against the rocky shore, and it's just a really fun kind of adventure to take.
One of my favorite things, I like walking. I like walking. San Francisco is a very walkable city for the most part.
Yes.
If you want to see a lot of city, then you can start at like Union Square, basically, which is Powell and Market, and walk from there through Chinatown, through North Beach, over to Fisherman's Wharf, and then ride the cable car back. There's lots of good bars in North Beach. You can go get a little loaded. San Francisco Brewing Company's back there is great. If you're not 21, don't get loaded. It's also similarly, going down to the Mission and just walking up Valencia is always fascinating on a weekend. There's all sorts of cool stuff to see. There's a lot of little shops where you'll see stuff that you've probably never seen before. It's a good people watching place, plus lots of good places to get food and drink along. Like, it's hard to throw a stone and find some place that doesn't make something that's awesome in especially the busy neighborhoods. Yelp is really useful while you're here to find stuff that is good.
Valencia Street between 17th and 19th streets.
It's very specific.
On the, I believe, the even number side of the street.
You want the south side, or the east side, I guess.
Before the sun sets towards the end of your day, if you can make it, go to the top of Twin Peaks. And then
on a non-foggy day.
Right, on a non-foggy day. And then review where you've been, because you'll be able to see the whole city.
You can see everything. And then the other place, if you don't want to spend the afternoon, go to Academy of Arts and Sciences. The top, you can go up to the top of the De Young Art Museum and look over all of the park and kind of the western part of the city from there. It's a really pretty overlook.
That's free too.
It's free, yeah.
You can't bring beverages. Details.
Don't bring a sixer. Or if you do, put in your backpack. Don't let them
bring
see
your
it.
coffee.
And walking in Embarcadero is also great. If it's especially at nighttime, the bay lights, the bridge lights are on all the time now. If it's clear and it's not rainy, it's not foggy. Walking Embarcadero from like the Exploratorium, the Science Museum, or the Trolley Museum down to a streetcar museum, rather, down toward Market Street is unbelievable. So, and again, there's lots of good stuff to do down there. Farmers Market is down there on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and it is a thing that locals do. It won't be a lot of tourists there. Lots of good food, lots of good restaurants, and lots of good stuff to eat while you're down there. I thought we had one more question. The other thing that we got almost universally last week, we were talking. Somebody asked about the best podcast client that syncs,
or the best one on Android. Period.
Best one on Android, preferably something that syncs across iOS and Android. And Pocket Casts was universally almost. I think maybe two people said something else, but
Pocket Casts.
Norm got Pocket Casts.
It's $5, worth it.
Do you like it better than what you were using before?
Yes, absolutely.
What's your favorite podcast right now, Norm?
Favorite podcast right now is Radio Diaries.
Jeremy used to be a podcast guy. Are you still listening to podcasts, or not so much?
No, not at all.
No time for that?
No time. Pretty much you guys and the occasional twit.
Okay, that's fair.
Triangulation also by Leo Laporte. Sometimes they got a really cool guest.
Okay. And that'll do it for us this week. As always, thanks for coming in, Jeremy. At Jerware on Twitter.
Yeah.
Number C194731214 on Google+.
Thank you very much. Jer.Williams.
Jer.Williams on
Yep.
Google+.
Yep.
It's nice that they gave us like short names so that people could link out to their social network easily.
I realize no one uses it.
I know.
That's fine.
I wish that they did.
When I got more attention when my Twitter account was hacked a few days ago for about 20 seconds
Yeah.
than I have ever on Google Plus. Like,
Really?
apparently, like my hacker added a bunch of people, and
How
they,
did
and
you
they
get
all thanked
your
me.
Twitter?
How'd you get hacked?
You didn't know about this?
No,
No.
you didn't tell us.
Oh, sorry, Gary saw it. It's just I sent out a tweet that said "Hey," and Micah, and Witta, they all responded like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, I started getting all this email, and I realized my Twitter account had been hijacked. So apparently Twitter like figured it out.
How
And-
did they
and
hijack you though? Do you know?
No idea. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I said, does anybody see anything that tells you what client sent that message? And all people could see was it was sent via the web.
Huh. Do you think did you sign in for any did you add any new Twitter apps or something like that to your?
No, not in a long time.
Do you have a reliable password? Is it safe?
Well,
How many characters? Like 24, 30?
No. It's a word that doesn't exist, but it had
Okay.
no numbers in it. So anyway, that's been changed. But Twitter figured it out. I don't know if this is something that happens
do
to a lot of
this,
people.
yeah.
But they shut it down within about a minute or two because the guy added about 200 people. Must have been a bot, and subscribed to a number of things. I forget what they were. But anyway, took about 20 minutes to fix.
That's good.
Yeah, and the fact that it's fixed is very good.
The one time I had a hack incident was at PAX. The first time we went to PAX, I foolishly signed in using my Twitter username and login. This is before OAuth to do a photo sharing thing.
Oh.
Like somebody sent me a photo and was like, "Hey, click this photo." I went there. I was like, "Oh, put my password in." Next thing I know, everybody's DMing me that I'd been DMing them with viruses and malware and stuff. And
Yeah.
Twitter didn't fix that automatically. It was a real pain in
Would
the
you
ass.
like to learn about this new beverage, health beverage?
P-Tips.
Yeah, I sent a message something about Lady Gaga. I forget what it was. It was horrible.
We all know your deep love of Lady Gaga and her music.
You don't know. It might be true.
I know you're a little monster. Norman Chan, anything from you this week? Anything?
No,
Any
we're good.
plugs? You're good. We'll be back next week with another edition of This Is Only the Test, only a test. I didn't grab a new audio file, so this week is going to be. I'm digging.
You remember the HBO song that they did with kazoos?
No.
You know, like the old HBO intro that you get before a movie was done with a cinematic synthesizer.
What are you talking about?
But then they made
that's amazing.
a homebrew one done with kazoos, and it was like this handmade model universe that they shot on video. I'm thinking you guys could do the tested song with kazoos. Yeah,
Oh.
that's it.
No, that's not the tested song.
No.
Have you ever seen the Jurassic Park melodica video on YouTube? Where
I don't know what melodica is.
So it's like I think you know what we think of accordions, but accordions are only the big square ones with the keyboard. The melodica is like the little, like the one that the gesture uses that it collapses in and
yes.
out, but it's just the buttons on the edge. I
Yes.
think. So they play the opening part when in the first Jurassic Park movie when they're all in the Jeeps and they see the brontosauruses for the first time, and Sam Neill loses his fucking mind, and it has the majestic John Williams theme come up out of nowhere, and then something amazing happens. So just search for melodica Jurassic Park.
Okay.
And I am trying desperately to get the this week's theme out. Here we go. This one is from Ad Hoc, and I haven't listened to it yet, so who knows? This could be completely disastrous.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Test it.
I suck for all I'm worth until I get a hit of liquid.
Suck for all your worth, man. Suck for all you're worth.
Test it.
Topical.
I don't remember what that one's from either.
That one's from Tim Tam's Slam.
Oh, Tim Tam Slam. What did you think about the Tim Tam Slam?
I'm gonna go for one right now.
Really? We
Yeah.
got some hot coffee in there?
Yep.
Somebody in the comments said port, which seems like a waste of perfectly good port.
Waste of port.
Yeah.
Port's expensive.
Jeremy, have you ever Tim Tam Slammed?
No.
No.
Would you like to try?
Is this alcoholic?
No.
No, what is it?
It's sugary.
Oh, I like sugar.
Okay. Well, let's go Tim Tam Slam.
Let's do it.